Franklin County Commissioners meeting, September 4th, 2018.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the regular weekly board meeting of the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, September 4th. All three commissioners are here, as well as County Administrator Mr. Johnson. So we are in order, in session. If you would please join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hope everybody had a good Labor Day weekend. Officially the start of fall or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure cooled off a bit. Take a moment to turn a couple things off so we don't interrupt the microphone. There we go. Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from August 21st. I entertain a motion to approve or accept consent for approval. Any comments, questions, or concerns about the minutes?
Move for approval of chairman's signature. Second.
Okay, motion second for approval, excuse me, of the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Let's see, we're already on to public comment. Anybody here this morning, general public, wishing to meet with the board? This would be one of two opportunities, another one toward the tail end of the meeting. Okay, not seeing anybody. Excuse me, we'll move on to office business.
Mr. Chairman, we have two vouchers in front of us this morning. The first one is fund expenditures, 10 miscellaneous items, current expense, jail commissary, ending homelessness, etc. The bottom line of these 10 items is $287,733.14. And Keith has approved them, and Mr. Burkhart and Rosa have audited them.
I will second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and second for approval of fund expenditures as presented to the board and read into the record by Commissioner Cook. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Second and final this morning is salary, clearing, and emergency management payroll. Bottom line of these two items is $1,115,819.66. And Mr. Beaton and Raul have added them.
And I will second this motion also.
Okay, so motion and second for approval of salary clearing and emergency management payrolls as presented read into the record. Commissioner Cook, any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved as well. We've got three items in the consent agenda this morning, which is a little shorter than usual. I know we've all had the opportunity to look at these ahead of time. I don't see anything here that is out of the norm. However, if any commissioner wishes to pull an item for separate discussion, we can do that now.
I would move for approval of the consent agenda 1 through 3.
I will second that motion also.
Okay, motion and second for approval of consent. Any discussion on any of these items?
Not for me.
Okay, and Mr. Johnson, item 3, the correction step, step 3 was something, as I recall, we previously discussed and asked it to come back in consent.
That's correct.
Have we discussed this?
No, this one's a new request. It was presented a little out of the norm. I anticipated I was not going to be here today, which is why we presented it under the consent, but this is a new.
Okay, just for the record, my personal preference, and I'll vote no in the future if they come back on consent, because we owe discussion to every other department and every other employee who brings us one, we say no to them. To do this without a discussion on the same level and the same merits is unfair to them. I understand the reason you did it, and I'm not critical of that, but I'd like to have some discussion now before we move forward. I'm not suggesting or signaling that I don't think it's appropriate to approve it, but we owe them the same consideration as other employees get. So, Carla, since you are here, would you mind coming up for a minute and just summarizing it for us? off by pointing out that it's difficult enough to find deputies corrections or otherwise, so we need to use a step to go ahead and follow the practice.
Sure. This is, the request from the sheriff is for an entry at step 3 of the salary schedule for a new corrections deputy. This gentleman has over 17 years of experience in corrections, including work in Benton County, Walla Walla, and the Department of Corrections. So certainly his training and experience will be a valuable addition to the correction center. And as you said, it's challenging to find corrections deputies, and we've definitely had a lot of a need. So,
Right. Well, the important thing is that people, other departments who listen to this recording, hear what the rationale is behind it, because I think it's clearly defensible for a step 3 for a person with that kind of experience. But if we don't go through this process, they never hear that and they never know it. And so
I understand.
I appreciate you taking time to do that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, great,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
We'll give a motion and second for approval of consent agenda 3 items as presented. There are no other comments or questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those are approved. Okay. Takes us right down to administration office business.
Yes. The first item before you this morning is an item related to federal payments in lieu of taxes, or what we often refer to as PILT money. The county receives basically 2 different kinds. One managed to the Department of Interior, and another managed to the Department of Energy. The question before us is related to the Department of Interior PILT monies. It's a small amount that we receive on an annual basis. Back in 2015 through 2017, due to the constraints of the federal budget, the federal government did not fund the full amount for these Department of Interior PILT payments to Franklin County and a number of other counties in Washington and a number of counties throughout the western United States. Kane County, Utah filed a lawsuit which eventually became a class action lawsuit on behalf of all of those counties that were affected by underpayment. The court determined that Kane County's argument was correct. Long and short of it is Franklin County stands to benefit to the tune of about $6,626 before attorney's fees if we sign on as an additional plaintiff to that litigation. The litigation has essentially been decided, and they're just having to determine which counties are willing to sign as plaintiffs. We have reviewed this with the prosecutor's office. They are in agreement that it makes sense for Franklin County to sign the letter and designate Franklin County as a recipient of the funds. It would require additional litigation costs on our part or attorney time to do that. But I discussed it with Sean Stanton, Jim Johnson, and I see Jen's in the audience. If you have legal questions regarding the impact of that, I'm sure she'd be willing to respond a little bit. This is fairly straightforward as we see it. Just need the commissioner's approval to sign.
So after the attorney cost, what's left?
It's probably going to be, I would guess, maybe 25%, so $5,000 left in that neighborhood.
Other questions?
I have no reason not to sign it.
So, yeah, if the attorneys are only going to take 25%, that seems like a better than the usual deal. Sorry. And recognizing that it would eat up $5,000 overnight for us to pursue this on our own. But I'm just curious, do we if it were a much larger number, let's say we were dealing with $1 million, is there an avenue, since this has already been challenged and decided? I would presume that there would be. We'd still have our own independent case if we want, or cause if we wanted to pursue it. Okay. Just curious, that's certainly not suggesting we do that.
Yeah, the legal basis for determining that the federal government had not properly paid what was due really has been decided. So if we were to enter as an additional plaintiff in lieu of signing the class action, I mean, yeah, as you said, we'd spend more time eating up $5,000.
For future reference.
Yeah.
If something like this comes up and it's a much bigger number, it's just good background. So, what's the wishes of the board? Do you want to maybe do a motion, have the chair sign necessary documents, or do you want to go another route?
I think that would work, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Just motion to move that we have the chair sign documents for this PILT funding that has been denied, but the attorney has awarded it through litigation, has awarded it to the counties.
Is that a motion? Second?
Okay, motion and second for authority for the chair to sign necessary documents to join into the class suit and try to collect these PILT funds. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Keith, you've got those documents, right? They sent us an email with.
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so we've got two items here. Next one is the Wilson House, and the other is Detox, and they are remarkably similar but remarkably different.
Correct.
I'm sure you want to start with Wilson House.
I can start with either one if you.
Yeah, I think I prefer to start with Detox.
All right. Yeah, we received a request late last week from the attorneys representing Lords and RCCH with respect to their consolidation, and the request is similar to the other item on the agenda, in that they are asking for a lease assignment related to the Detox Center. Because the sale did in fact go through over the weekend, and Lords now has a new owner, they would like us to assign our lease with them for the Detox Center to the new entity.
So concerns about these leases holding up the sale were not caused
Well,
concern.
it was represented to us that that was a conditional sale, but obviously they were able to get.
I'm glad it didn't interfere.
So we do have a lease with them that is subject to assignment by them, and we just need the approval of the board to move forward with that. That's what you want.
So, working from memory, because it's been a while since I read this, but I thought I saw a distinction, gentlemen probably need your help here, a distinction in these leases wherein in the detox facility, there was already authority for the lessee to assign. And
That's correct.
They really didn't need to come back and get our approval, it's just acknowledgement of paperwork, they can do it whether we acknowledge it or not. That's why I think these are so decidedly different. So I don't really have an issue with that one, and I think it's a function that needs to continue, and unless one of the other commissioners has concerns or wants to discuss it, we can move on to Wilson House.
I think you're correct. I think it needs to stay with Lords at this time. Detox is a different animal, and I think they've done a good job with it, so let's continue on.
Yeah, and just for clarity's sake, you said you stayed with Lords.
Yeah, RCCH.
Lords can, okay, all right. All right, so that brings us to Wilson House.
Okay, the Wilson House lease obviously was brought before the board for consideration before. I think you know the particulars, just for the record.
And the key of that was to have legal review it, because it
Yes.
did not happen. Okay.
And we did ask Jennifer to take a look at that. Jennifer, the comments you want to make to?
Not necessarily have any comments, obviously, like you pointed out, it's different from the other lease, there is no
Right.
immediate or automatic transfer. I would recommend maybe entering into a short assignment, so that way we can look into it and we can renegotiate with them, as they are not a not-for-profit institute anymore.
Right, so, thank you, because that's essentially what I think I said at the last meeting, which was, I don't have a problem with the transition, don't have a problem with the current use continuing, but I don't want the current lease that goes back, I think, to 1991 or something like that, continuing to play. We need to take a fresh look at it because we no longer have, as you just pointed out, not-for-profit players. Doesn't mean we can't work with the new owners, it just means I think we, after 30-some years, probably ought to take a fresh look at it. So, do we have documents that do that? Do we want to do those next week?
We don't yet, and I was just going to add, Joanna Jumper is the individual I've been dealing with most directly, and she's indicated a desire to want to speak to the board by telephone this morning if the board wants to entertain that conversation.
What's the purpose?
It's just to have her explain from their side why this is essential, and if we don't need that discussion, we don't need the phone call. But
I think we're agreeing to the assignment, so I wouldn't see that that's necessary. And in terms of, a full-out assignment versus a shorter term for reconsideration, I'm pretty hard set on that. I don't know about the other commissioners.
No, I totally agree. It's time to look at the whole package.
All right, so assignment, yes, but the new shorter term.
okay, that's acceptable, and we'll bring that back next week for final approval.
This contract that we're under today, that just goes through 19?
The Wilson House goes through 2021.
20 or
It was renewed in 2011 for a 10-year period.
Okay, so it's 21. Okay, that's,
I think I proposed last week that, we go no longer than June 30th of next year, which is the end of the state fiscal year, and funding that's associated with those programs typically runs out at that time. So that might give all the parties plenty of time to get familiar with one another, look at all the ramifications of it, and then decide. To me, that's no later than June 30th next year. I certainly entertain something shorter if there's a reason to do it.
no, I think that number will work well, give us a chance to, for our end also, to figure out if we want to continue or not, if there's other avenues.
Yeah, I think if we did it end of the calendar year, we would just put a crunch on people coming up and everything else. And ending it in the middle of winter isn't beneficial for anybody either. If it should go that way, I don't know that it would. So.
I agree with all those comments
Okay,
that we both made.
great. Keith, any other administrative business?
I have no administrative business, but I'm going to request one executive session.
There's one other opportunity for public comment at this time. Anybody wishes to speak with the board, this is an opportunity. Okay, not seeing any. Keith, before we go to executive session, I just want to mention, Matt, I've got 2 or 3 things that are public works and planning related that if you're available after the meeting, I'd sure appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Executive session.
Yes, I would like to request an executive session up to 30 minutes under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G. I need to take this. Sure. Hello, Bob. Hello. Are you there? Yes, Bob. How are you? Listen, this is Keith Johnson, County Administrator, Franklin County. Good, thank you. Listen, the board just took action to approve a temporary extension of the lease, so I don't think we're going to need a call in this morning. All right. Okay, thank you for your time. We haven't determined an act. You and I will need to work that out in detail, but probably no longer than June of next year, but we'll get that worked out. Okay. Yeah, it'll be part of the broader group. Very good. Thank you for your time. apologies.
No problem. It's good to convey that.
Let me repeat that RCW is 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G, evaluating the qualifications of an applicant for employment. And I would like, obviously, the board, myself, clerk, the Human Resources Director, the Public Works Director, and Derek Bratton to be able to remain in the room.
Okay. Thank you all for, Mr. McGarry. I wanted you to know I did get your, I don't know if it was an email or a text, I saw it, and if we don't get to that during the meeting, we'll get to it right after, if you're available. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, recording and the mics are back on. It's approximately 9:52, I guess, when they came on. We completed our executive session in the planned and allotted time. And Keith, is there need for any additional executive sessions?
No, I think I'm good.
Morning, Mr. Graham. How you doing? Morning. We're right near the end of our meeting. Did you want to chat with the board about anything, or did you come by to visit with me?
I came by to visit with the commission.
Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Graham has been following the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and especially allocations of Lower Columbia salmon allocations up in the upper river areas. And as you recall, a while back there was a meeting with representatives from DFW, and Nathan was there, and I was there, and actually Trondell from Benton County was there, probably 15, 20 people in the room. So up to the board, we've actually completed our scheduled agenda, but if you're willing, I think you might find it interesting to hear a little bit about that issue. Want to take time? You got a couple options. You can stand at the mic, you can come up, have a seat. Usually we're pretty informal.
I like sitting.
I've been looking at that chart they sent out. Couldn't make heads or tails out of it, really.
Correct. Any of these
No
mics?
pun intended. That might be better if you use this other one.
This one?
If you would start out real quickly just by telling us what you do in your day-to-day professional capacity, because that'll reaffirm where you fit in our community. And then real quick, from a fishery standpoint, what drives your interest, and then what's going on.
Okay.
I know all that, but they need the benefit of that.
Perfect. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nathan Grimm. I'm a resident of Pasco, avid outdoorsman. Work at Hanford as a cost estimator, which involves a lot of number crunching. I have particular interest, and the reason I'm here today is to seek your support in sending a letter to the Fish and Wildlife Commission regarding spring Chinook allocations in the Columbia River. I participated in the meeting in July with the department with Commissioner Peck and drafted a letter that was sent by the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board to both the Washington Fish and Wildlife Commission and the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Commission, highlighting some inequity in the allocation. I believe I sent you guys an email prior to that July meeting as a commission, introducing myself, talking about some of the financial impact. Spring Chinook fishing on the Snake River in particular in Franklin County, it's very popular, and in addition to being popular, I think there is an economic impact that due to Washington Fish and Wildlife Commission policy of the geographical allocation, there is not equity in opportunity nor economic impact. So I would like to again ask you guys to support drafting a letter to the Fish and Wildlife Commission. They are in the midst of reviewing their Columbia River salmon policy. And so that this letter that was sent by the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board addressed that. I have a copy of the letter if you guys are interested in seeing that.
You're talking Columbia and Snake. Are they intertwined in your?
In regards to the spring Chinook allocation, they are. Because the spring Chinook allocation is fixed. There's only so many fish per USU Oregon, which is a federal court case.
And the allocation, Nathan, is really upriver, not Snake or Columbia.
The demarcation point in the policy is Bonneville Dam. So they make a allocation of the upriver stocks only, and there's more than one stock of spring Chinook. 75% below Bonneville and 25% above Bonneville. I also have a chart that shows how that allocation, since the policy's been in place since 2009, 8 out of those 10 years, the lower below Bonneville fishery has exceeded their allocation. And being the minority
Sport and Indian, or?
This is non-Indian, so USU Oregon makes a split between treaty Indians and non-treaty Indians. There are tribal contingencies that are considered non-treaty to the Columbia River. Even though they have a federal treaty, they're not Columbia River Treaty tribes. So
Because they aren't bordered on the river, or what's?
Because the 4 treaty tribes that have established rights have kept them from establishing rights.
Okay.
So there's 4 treaty tribes. What is it? The Warm Springs, the Nez Perce, the Yakima, and the Umatilla.
The spring Chinook allocation that you're talking about is above Bonneville. It doesn't differentiate or break down. Well, I guess I've seen some numbers that suggest they do try and break it down and say so many Columbia fish, so many snake fish. It's unclear to me how they make that differentiation, other than trying to walk backward into the numbers based on a statement of upper rivers. So how are they setting those allocations? Are they saying for upriver fish it's X% and this number for the snake and this number for the Columbia?
So the allocation is made on the upriver stock of spring Chinook, which is essentially stocks returning to the Snake River and upper Columbia above Priest Rapids Dam.
And the allocation is for both rivers collectively, or do they further break it down by river?
It's for the collective main stem, Columbia River and Snake River. Because it's a USV Oregon ESA impact that the commission policy allocates. So
I just want to get that clear before I ask the next question, which is in the table that they sent out, they actually were putting down a number of fish for the snake and a number of fish for the Columbia. And I'm curious, is that just arbitrary? And how are they making that breakout? I don't know that fish going over the dam is whether it's headed to the upriver, Columbia or the snake. They just don't know.
In season they don't, but they do postseason run reconstruction.
Right, so they run it backward on the numbers.
Right, after the run, there's pit tags, there's various real-time data that they can use to try to identify stock composition, but
Sure.
the way that it works in the preseason, they have estimated run sizes that come out of the USU Oregon TAC committee, Technical Advisory Committee, of which the states of Washington, Oregon, I believe Idaho, and then the 4 treaty tribes have biologists who are a part of. So they determine the run sizes, and then the USU Oregon makes the treaty, non-treaty split, and then from there the states are in charge of the non-treaty portion. They make a commercial recreational split, and then they further split the recreational 75-25, 75% to below Bonneville Dam, 25% to above Bonneville Dam.
So as you already spoke, they've got lots of fisheries biologists. They generate numbers, they generate recommendations. Obviously, they don't make decisions, but obviously they also influence decisions. And so you're visiting with us, I'm assuming it's on the premise that we need something, if we're going to get the allocation changed, to counterbalance the input from the pure biologist side and put some some community and political and economic data into the equation.
Correct.
And that's what you think a letter will do. Other counties have signed a similar letter. I think I saw Mike Argent had a note that Columbia had done one.
Yeah, I believe there are county commissioners on the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board, and so Whitman, Columbia, and I believe they are going to send the same or similar letter. So it's a very long letter. There were 3 or 4 of us that put in 4 hours 2 weeks ago on a Friday to come up with this letter. I think one of the telling things is if you just turn over the 2 pages, there's some charts on the back that demonstrate, I guess, some of the numerical inequities. So one of the metrics that we've called to their attention is sales of endorsement tags for Columbia River, which Washington and Oregon both have an endorsement. If you would like to fish in the Columbia or its tributaries, you must buy said endorsement. So the way the endorsement falls out, it's roughly, and when we say west side, this includes counties like King County and things like that, but we just kind of make that determination, roughly 70 to 28%. But there are some other metrics that describe spring Chinook at the top of page 2.
Well, before we leave this chart, I'm looking at the top one. It shows for 2017 that east side, am I reading it right? 28% of the endorsements were purchased east side?
Correct.
And what would you say when they say, well, there's your proof, we're allowing 25% of the fish upriver and 28% of the people, 3% is not a big delta?
I would say that's one measure.
So what can we draw from this chart that was pointed out in an equity? I'm not suggesting it's not here, I'm just saying help us understand how this chart helps your cause.
Well, this chart is one of the metrics. I was going to draw your attention to the top of page 2. There's 5 bullet points. There are some of the other objective metrics that we think are pertinent to considering spring Chinook allocation. So you can look at hatchery production, which is the inverse of the endorsement sales, essentially. So only 29% of the spring Chinook hatchery stocks are produced below Bonneville Dam, 71% above. Main Stem River area with hatchery spring Chinook, which are considered the only harvestable stock, 21% below Bonneville, 79% above. The aforementioned endorsement sales, we have a 70-30 figure here, which was a kind of a rounding. The returns, based on 2010 to 14 average, 30% below Bonneville, 70% above, and then a delta.
It would speak to the Chinook returns. You're talking about the source for the juvenile salmon?
Nope, adult spring Chinook returns, so that's adult counts.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
When you take that preseason run size for all of the spring Chinook stocks by river, it's 30% below Bonneville and 70% above.
So just to put this in terms so everybody's clear, what you're saying is of that population of spring Chinook coming up, that 70% are destined for upriver spawning grounds and 30% below Bonneville?
Correct. As adults, 70% of the spring Chinook run in its entirety is destined for areas above Bonneville Dam.
Of course, would fit obviously exactly with the hatchery production and the sourcing. Obviously, these fish return to where they were hatched or spawned.
And so then one of the other things that we calculated was a difference in economic benefits. The state applies a $58 per angler day figure, and so I took per capita income by the same counties that we split the endorsement sales. So in those below Bonneville counties, it takes 465 angler days to equal an average per capita income. And for above Bonneville, it's 380. So depending on which way you look at it, it's a 23 to 18%.
So we're saying $1 invested by the average per capita Eastern Washington salmon fishermen is a lot more financial impact to them than $1 out of King County.
Correct. Or Clark County, Vancouver, Portland area. So I have this other chart that can I hand that to you? That shows specifically the Snake River run size. It shows the allocation that's supposed to go to below Bonneville Dam at 75%, and then the actual allocated proportion below Bonneville Dam after the end of the season and the fisheries were completed. So
you said something there, I guess you said the allocation that was supposed to go.
So the dashed yellow line is the commission policy allocation of 75%.
Okay, that's the commission's policy.
Correct.
All right. And then the actual allocation is which one?
The gray.
Okay. So you're saying for the last couple of years they've been allocating much more. Now that allocation, if they, since the dashed line is the policy, but each year they give an allocation. And so the gray, solid gray number reflects what they actually did. The dashed line reflects what the policy says they should do.
Correct. So the commission institutes the policy, and it's up to department staff to manage the fishery to meet said policy.
Right.
So, and this is post-season reconstruction. Spring Chinook allocation is very complex. There's run sizes, there's ESA impacts, there's stock composition. There's a lot of figures that I've been trying to understand it for 10 plus years, and I learn something new every year.
Yeah. Well, there's also pelicans and herons and terns and tern island and sea lions and lots of variables.
So page 2 is just the data that makes up that chart.
Yeah, no, we're not cost estimators, so these are beautiful numbers, I'm sure.
Actually, this Commissioner Peck is in the spreadsheet they sent out last week.
Right.
So you asked for my opinion or output on that, and I think that they gave me data that shows that staff has not, statistically, you should be in the 50% range, not 80% biased towards the majority fishery. I would think ECHA would be 80% biased towards the minority fishery. So what you see there on the second page is there's a Snake River wild run size at the Columbia River mouth. There's
And by that you mean the actual mouth of the Columbia or the confluence of the Snake River?
That's the actual mouth of the Columbia. So they estimate these run sizes at the mouth of the Columbia.
Okay.
Then you see the sport mortality of said Snake River wild spring Chinook in zones 1 through 5, which is below Bonneville.
Is that all sources or just sport?
I believe that is sport,
Oh, it's still sport.
per their description.
So that doesn't count tribal fisheries or pelicans or terns or
Nope.
sea lions?
That's wild mortality. So recreational fishers are not allowed to retain wild spring Chinook.
Right.
We're allowed to kill them through incidental mortality while fishing for harvestable hatchery stocks.
Right.
So that the statistics say that for every 10 spring Chinook a recreational angler handles, one will die before it can spawn.
So this sport zone 1 through 5 is
Below Bonneville.
mortality of wild stock?
Correct.
Okay, so this whole chart is wild stock mortality?
Correct.
All right. And I'm going to have to,
Well, the first column is the run size, and then after that it's the mortalities on that run size.
understand. Okay.
So then the next column, sport Z6 through I-95, is zone 6. to Interstate 395.
So let me make sure I understand this. When you say this is the mortality, this is the fish caught? This is the fish that
This is the
died?
wild fish calculated dead.
So they
Okay.
catch a wild fish and they say, oh, I can't legally keep this, they release it. The percentage of those, maybe 1 in 10, aren't going to survive long term. So it's
That's the mortality.
so that's the mortality. It's not, these are not fish that are legally caught and kept. These are ones that are inadvertently caught while trying to catch a hatchery fish.
Right. The catch balance, the actual catch, is in this second chart on the back of the letter.
So on the wild stock mortality chart, what's the big takeaway you're making?
Well, so you see that the sport's broken down by zone, the snake, and then they have a total sport in the Columbia, which is the zones 1 through 5 plus zone 6 through I-95,
I-395?
Interstate 395. Originally, they had rules that allowed fisheries up to 395, but they haven't had that for the past 10 years at least. But then you see the actual proportion of wild stock taken below Bonneville of the total, which in 2009 was 92% of the wild mortalities were taken below Bonneville.
Okay.
And so then you see the
what's
70.
the significance of that? I mean, I think I know what you're saying, but
The significance is they were only supposed to take 75%. So through the in-season management actions that were taken in that particular year to run Sayatut, when it all shook out at the end, they took 92%.
which is because they also took a higher number of fish,
Correct.
not just ones that were instant kill or wild stock mortality. The
No, that's
allocation was actually higher too.
that's their percentage of wild killed. So if you take their 216 divided by the total, which is the 216 plus 8 plus 10, that's 92%.
No, I'm just saying it's not surprising that there's a higher wild fish mortality because there was a higher allocation also.
Well, they were only supposed to get 75%.
I understand, but, you know, the correlation does not prove causation, but in this case, the correlation is really strong.
Correct. And so then you see in the final column, it's the over-under, the allocation. So if there's a negative number, they over-utilized. If
The
there's a,
takeaway is really the bottom right corner number, 20.3% in 2017.
well, that was last year, but when you go back to the harvest percentages, they harvested 99% of the spring Chinook in 2017.
Yeah, I'm talking about this particular chart.
Right.
So this is consideration of just sport fishing. This is not tribal, this is not anything else, this is sport.
This is wild mortalities. This is wild mortalities related to sport
Yeah,
fishing,
okay.
geographically split up.
Okay. Very interesting.
So,
So Nathan, maybe you and I can meet later today, or we can talk on the phone. I think the real question is the board willing to send a letter to Washington DFW on behalf of the people of Franklin County saying we think that these numbers are deserving of another look. We think that the allocations are too heavily weighted below Bonneville, and that there are good data, these numbers that show that. 99% of total allocations taken below Bonneville. It doesn't leave a whole lot for people of Franklin County in the upper.
no. It's a zero-sum game, so when they take more than they're supposed to, it means we get shorted.
Do you have copies of the letters from other counties?
I have this copy from the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board. I have not been privy to any of the other letters. It was my understanding that it would be essentially the same letter.
What counties did you say had sent?
I don't know that have sent or are in the process of drafting and sending. I believe it's Whitman, Columbia, and Walla Walla.
Well, it's not asking too much. You maybe give those folks a call. Just call the office and ask them if they've done a letter. And if they have, ask them to email you a copy. It'll be a public record.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I'm pretty sure I can get a hold of John. He's the executive director of the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board.
if
And he
you
would
get
be
copies
aware?
of those letters and just forward them on to me, then I'll package it up and produce something for the board to consider. Is there anybody want to give an indication of where you are now? How do you feel about the idea of sending a letter?
I feel good about it.
Yeah, full support.
Yes.
You say you had a copy of the letter? No.
I have a Word copy of this exact letter.
Yeah.
This is not from the county, so this is from the Snake River group, and I'd like to see what the counties are saying. It says the Snake River Salmon Recovery folks are going to come at it from a little different perspective. Generally, as a legislative body. And so, if you can give me copies of those, and Commissioner Cook, I'm sorry, were you finished? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I would like a copy of the letter he has. And Karen could take care of it.
That's it right there.
Oh, is this the one here? I guess I didn't understand that.
This is what I have I have a Word doc of this. This is what I helped draft.
Okay.
I guess I would encourage you guys
You
to.
can email that to me.
Correct, I can. I would encourage you guys to read this, and
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I
as a
misunderstood.
citizen who has extensive knowledge on the issue, I would like to help you.
Yes. Could you resend an email or a way of contact for you?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And then after this, right now my major focus is on getting a letter sent. There is a review process for this policy going on. Currently, I believe the commission is going to meet on September 15th. So I'm sorry for the short timeline, but holidays and things like that. But after that, I would like to talk about if the county is interested in becoming a member of the Snake River Salmon Recovery Board.
Is it free?
I believe so. It just is a participation thing.
I'm just kidding. We have to do a lot of things, and
So, what I need to send contact information, a copy of the Word doc, and try to gather the other county letters.
I will forward it to the other two. That
Okay.
way you don't have to look up multiple email addresses. If you want to send it individually, certainly you're welcome. I'm just trying to save you some effort. But send a copy of the Word doc. We have a printed copy.
Thank you.
What I'm really interested in finding out is whether or not these other counties have sent a letter. So if you just give them a jingle, and if they have, ask them to send you a copy of the letter and then forward it on to me. Because what we want to do is make sure that if there are multiple counties expressing concern in the state, they're not contradicting one another, and that if one county that's done a really fine job of articulating part of the issue, we'll probably want to use some of that language. If we think that they missed some points, we want to make sure we get those in our letter. It's about rounding out the discussion. That's the purpose of seeing the other letters.
Right, I understand.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see, we were just about to adjourn. The timing was great. Any other business before we adjourn? Adjourn. Thanks. Got a couple of packages we still need to sign here.